Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. We're going to be doing a keep, loan, or sell show today. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and get into the chat and get involved. We are going to play Edu for the day. We're going to be, Arsenal sporting director. Not even for a day, for like an hour, because who really wants that job? I mean, it looks extremely stressful. So, really going to play around for like an hour, but let's try to have fun while we do it. And obviously, thank you guys so much for tuning in, subscribing to the channel. Hopefully, you already have. And all those kind of things because the channel has been growing quite a bit over the last couple of days. And that's because of you guys. So, thank you so much. Let's see what you guys are saying. There's already quite a few of you guys in here. Laska says, hey, Jess. Hello to you as well. Mark says he's first. Perfect. So, yeah, today has been, I think, an interesting day in terms of Arsenal and transfers. Nothing has happened, nothing concrete, but all of the news around the players that we've kind of been linked to over the last couple of weeks is kind of firming up a little bit. Over the last maybe hour or so, there's been more legitimate and credible reports around Arsenal's interest in Moises Caicedo, which for me was a little bit like, okay, is it Rice or Caicedo? Maybe it's both. Who knows? And then the bid for Rice is being prepared. It's being faxed over. It's being written. It's being emailed. Who knows? It's being prepared. So we know in the next couple of weeks that once the window opens, Arsenal should be pretty busy. But in order for Arsenal to be busy, squad building has to be right. And I think we all kind of agree and disagree on who should stay, who should go, and things like that. And this is why these types of shows are so fun because we get to all kind of like chit chat about it, have a good time, nothing too serious. But it also kind of gives us like a view into how the fans view the players because I feel like we're going to disagree on quite a bit of this stuff. There are players that I trust and that I think deserve a chance, and some Arsenal fans are already done with those players and vice versa. So that's why these types of things are pretty fun. But as well as players coming in, players definitely have to go out, and Arsenal still have quite a bit of dead wood. And the difference between this summer and summers of the past is that it feels like Arsenal have some assets that other teams would actually be interested in taking for a fee. Over the last couple of windows, it's definitely been like, hey, just take them, just rip up the contract. I don't think we're gonna have too many of those this summer. There should only be maybe one or two. And those players are pretty obvious. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's see what you guys are saying. Brandon says, no Declan Rice, Edu out. Okay, well, damn. Nashville says, we will disagree a lot. Can we all agree I am the one who is always right? Fair enough. I'm fine with that. John Donut says, hey, Jess, hello to you as well. So let's go ahead and get the matrix up here. Let's see. Boop. All right, so you guys should be able to see it now. Let me know if you guys can see it. It's showing up on my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it or not. Let's see. Let's see. All right, so the only player that now I'm realizing that I'm missing is Pepe. Like, I completely forgot about him. And I was just looking at the little tier maker thing and I was like, make sure you have everybody. That is how far away from my thought process that he is. I literally forgot about Nicolas Pepe, but I did see a report not maybe a day ago saying that he's gone. There was a couple maybe a couple of months ago where people were like, well, could he make his way back? If we can't afford another winger, can we just no, it's not happening. He's gone. Arsenal, if they can't get somebody to buy him on a permanent deal, they will look to cancel his contract. So like I was saying a couple of minutes ago, there are going to be some players that we're not going to be able to sell for a fee. He's probably the biggest one. But other than that, we should be getting fees for our players. Crispy says Pepe. Yeah, he's just is what it is. I don't know. I think you just have to call that one a L. For real. You win some, you lose some. I think for the majority of the players that Arteta and Edu have bought over the last couple of windows, they've mostly all been pretty good. There's the odd like, oh, I forgot Nuno too. Damn it! I forgot Nuno. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I forgot Nuno too. I wonder. Let me go in here real quick. Let me try to add them really quick because I almost feel like it's not. Should I add them? Yeah. No, it's okay. We'll just say it. Okay, we'll just say it. I can't. I forgot Nuno. That's how far he is away from me as well, too. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So the sections or the different tiers are crucial players that like we can't live without. These guys are not going anywhere. Like if they bust a kneecap, we're willing to give them our own kneecap so they continue to play for Arsenal Football Club. Then when you have keep, players that maybe are not so as crucial, but like we're definitely not trying to sell them anytime soon. Undecided, maybe players that we're not sure, like maybe if a good bid came in, like maybe you'd consider it. You never know. Then you have loan players that maybe just need a little, additional playing time, but like away from Arsenal. I just remember I forgot Marquinhos. Damn it. I forgot a lot of players, but it is what it is. Is Emil Smith Rowe on here? Because if he's not, yes, he is. Okay, good. We got the main people. It is what it is. And then we have sell. And we know what that means. Get rid, you know? So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see. William is saying, I would drive him anyway. He wants to go for 3. I mean, I think you mean for free. Marco says, for me, all players on loan should be sold. Sell Holding, Jorginho, Elneny. Only keep one. Keep everyone else currently in the team. Bring in Rice, Caicedo, Gahey, Bowie. Job done. So you have your everything, you have it in your mind of what you want to happen. I'm kind of like that as well. Like I have it in my mind, like, okay, like these are the players that I would love to see go. And these are players I want to stay. And then like I forgot Mari too, but Mari's gone, so we don't even need to talk about Mari. We got like, 6 million or whatever for Mari. Some of the players are just not on here because I forgot about them. And that says it all. Let's start off with, let's go in with, let's start off with Granit Xhaka. This is an easy one because he is gone anyway. So I think Fabrizio Romano just tweeted about Xhaka. He's probably getting tons of DMs from Arsenal fans saying, what's going on with Xhaka? Xhaka is going. Arsenal just want to make sure that they buy somebody before they let him go. He's going to go to Bayer Leverkusen for about 15 million pounds, which some people are not happy with because they feel like he should be more than that. But I don't know what to tell you guys, but he's not worth more than that. Not at his age. Just because he had one good season doesn't mean he's worth 30, 40 million. That's just not how it goes. So 15 million for somebody like Granit Xhaka for me is probably fine, So Xhaka is he's gone, he's gone. And so I'm happy to see this chapter close. I know a lot of Arsenal fans have kind of changed their tune on Xhaka and have really started to like him over the last season or so. But for me, like there's just such a ceiling to how good we can be with him. And I think that this was probably his best ever season. Like this is as good as it's going to get with Granit Xhaka this season. Like this is it. This is the ceiling. This is it. So if we just think that like maybe in the next couple seasons it gets worse, we don't want him to stay long enough to become a villain again. So this is the perfect time to sell, especially because we should be changing the dynamics and the characteristics and the presence of our midfield this summer. This has been long overdue, and he's somebody that needs to be moved on in order for that to happen, right? So I'm happy to see him go. I'm happy that he gets to leave through the front door and not the back door. It's fine. Love him, but like, yeah. So yeah, let's go with probably like an obvious one that people want to stay. I would say Ramsdale is like an obvious, like crucial to me. Some people might have him in keep. Some people might have him in sell. I know there's still a lot of Arsenal fans that, not even a lot, I think there's just some that don't love Ramsdale, but like, had we not had Ramsdale, you guys, we would have been like way further down the table this season. The amount of like if there was another goalkeeper and he was an Arsenal goalkeeper and he was making the same saves that Ramsdale was, you guys would be kissing his ass. Like, that's just the truth. And you think about, like, against Bournemouth, against Everton, like, there were just games where he just showed up with a save or two, like, against Aston Villa, like, really that game could have been 4-4. So, for me, he's come along leaps and bounds. Obviously, he has the odd, brain fart, but, like, who doesn't make mistakes? Like, everybody makes mistakes. And so at 24 years old, like, we could potentially have England's number one on our hands, and that's invaluable. He's just not somebody that I would ever really look to sell unless he just became a complete liability. But I just think the trajectory for Aaron Ramsdale is going up. I know maybe one thing that maybe he should look for is maybe some media training. I think sometimes he maybe is too honest, in his interviews, and maybe he says a little bit too much. But ultimately, like, when it comes down to Aaron Ramsdale on the pitch, I am so happy about this signing. In the first season when he came, everybody was kind of saying, like, well, we know why we got him. He's good with his feet. So, like, but he's not a great shot stopper. He actually is good at, like, everything. He's a good shot stopper. He's, he's good with his feet. Like, he's a good all-arounder. He has a good personality. Like, he's just kind of, like, I think perfect for us. And, like, some people don't like that. They feel like you should just have, like, the best, but sometimes you don't always need the best. You need the best player for you. And I think he definitely fits in that. So yeah, Ramsdale for me, effing love him. Effing love him. I mean, 25 million is a fucking steal for a player like this. I mean, I don't know. I love him. I really, really do. And so yeah, he's definitely a crucial for me. Score 7 says needs to improve his penalty saves. That's his only weakness. That is something that, like, he's never near them. That's something that he can work on. Yeah, so I definitely can see that as, like, a place of improvement for him. But also, like, there are not a lot of goalkeepers that are really good at saving penalties. But yeah, I just love him. Like, I really do. Yeah. Roman says, oh no, we'll wait for that. But yeah, let's see what else. SM7 says, yes, media training. Stop handing him the mic. I mean, he's just not the best. Like, it's like read the room. You know what I mean? Sometimes with him, but I love him. And I think he's only going to get better for sure. Stubbs says every team needs someone like Ramsdale. Love his shithousery, and there are players like, Ramsdale and Ben White and Odegaard, I think in particular, that decided to join Arsenal in a time where it wasn't popular to join Arsenal. So, we are lucky to have Bukayo Saka because he came through our academy. Martinelli is somebody that came in a different regime, and is kind of like grown up at Arsenal a little bit. So he's a little bit different. But Odegaard and Ben White and Ramsdale are three players that came in one window and are highly talented players, have turned out to be transformational signings, in my opinion. Like, Ramsdale has changed the way that we play. I think Ben White is one of the first, probably, Arteta players that you can really look at and say, like, that is an Arteta player. Like, technical, also has the athleticism, versatile, like, all of the above, like the perfect package. And then you have Odegaard, that's kind of like everything that's good goes through him. And I like players like that come to the club when it's not popular and ride through the storm and become better as the club gets better. Like, Ramsdale's definitely one of those. Ben White is one of those as well, Odegaard. And so I think they'll pay back the club in getting better, if that makes sense, and they'll grow and develop as we do, which is nice to see. So yeah. Let's see. Laska says Emi Martinez is elite at saving pens. He is really good at saving penalties. He really is. But what I will say about Emi Martinez is that, like, I don't think his all-around game is as good as people make it out to seem. But he's a great goalkeeper, and if he had stayed, who knows what it would be like. But he didn't want to fight for a spot, and so for me, like, it is what it is. It's just not something that, for me, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. So let's keep it pushing. Let's go with somebody that's kind of on the outskirts of the team. We have Ainsley Maitland-Niles here. He will be sold, but it's already been revealed that he will go for free. Like he'll just run his contract will just be like cut up and torn up, and he'll go for free. What a shame. What a shame, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I mean, I think there's so many mistakes that were made on both sides with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Like, I can't even just blame him because, like, before we get to him specifically, there was a time where Arsenal could have sold Ainsley Maitland-Niles for 15 million to Wolves. And I think, the academy serves the first team in so many different ways, whether they become a Bukayo Saka type of player or they become like a Willock or something like that. You want to make sure you get something from your academy players. And for me, like, to see him just go on a free and for his career to just kind of like is disappointing, because there was a point in time where he looked like he could have been the perfect inverted right back for Mikel Arteta. I still think he could have been that. Like, if you look at the way that people want Moises Caicedo to play for Arsenal, especially in that inverted right back, if that's where Arteta wants to play him sometimes, Ainsley was doing that like before it was cool. Like before it was cool and like other people were doing it, Ainsley was doing that. He was doing it on both sides, and he was like a good shutdown defender. He was good enough on the ball as a right back where he was better than normal right backs, but he just was never going to be good enough to play in midfield for Arsenal. And if he had just accepted that, he could have saved us millions. He could be a good squad player for Arsenal. But right now, like, he's like 25. He was at Southampton. He didn't look great there. I don't think they necessarily really want him. I don't know who's going to want him. And I remember when he was at West Brom, Big Sam said that, Ainsley should just go back to Arsenal and play whatever position the manager wants him to play. Because I think Big Sam knew, just like Arteta knew, just like almost everybody knew, that that was the best it was going to get for Ainsley. If you didn't want to play right back, like, I don't know what else you thought you were going to do, because you're definitely not a midfielder. So there's mistakes on both sides. I remember when that 15 million pound bid came in from Wolves, I was like, take it and run, but unfortunately he's somebody that's going to leave the Emirates. But, I don't think many of us will be like sitting around like, oh my gosh, what's going on with Ainsley Maitland-Niles? But it is sad, it really is. Let's see. Score 7 says Ainsley Maitland-Niles FA Cup semifinal and final against City and Chelsea was special. I mean, that's really like, he could have taken that and ran with it and been an inverted fullback in Arteta's system and just went from there. But he was so desperate to be a midfielder that it kind of like crashed and burned, a little bit. And that's just sad to see. Neil says Ainsley has already said he's leaving on a free. Exactly. So we put him in the sell category, but he's going for free. Abscess says Ainsley Maitland-Niles had such great potential. He really did. He was a good player. He just was never going to play midfield for Arsenal. Roman says, is Ainsley Maitland-Niles still on an Arsenal player? How is that even possible? He will leave on a free this summer. Saida says, I'll be judging Edu not only on securing our targets, but also being able to sell well. No more ripping up targets. Fair enough. So yeah, it's a tough one, but bye, Ainsley. We'll see you when we see you. So that just reminded me, it's so funny that, like, I don't know why it just popped into my head, but like, do you know Kieran Gibbs is going to be playing with Lionel Messi at Inter Miami? It's wild. But yeah, so let's keep it pushing here. Let's go with an obvious one. Like, let's be for real. William Saliba is crucial to Arsenal. There's been reports today from the ever reliable Team and Ticks, whatever his name is on Twitter. I don't know. Every time his name pops up, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is he saying? Because basically, like, he was saying that a deal will be done, like, or deal in principle is confirmed with William Saliba for 190,000 pounds per week to 2,000 or 200,000 pounds per week. So in and around that same neighborhood as Saka. And that contract should be signed soon. And we saw the other day that reports were coming out that talks were positive with William Saliba, which it would have been a catastrophe if we had not been able to get William Saliba on a new contract. And even though I always believed that it would happen, there was just this thing in the back of my head, like, what if it doesn't? Because if it just undermines the project so much when your best and brightest don't want to stay. And so getting Martinelli, Saka, Ramsdale, Saliba, Odegaard, Ben White, getting all these guys on new deals, so important. And so, yeah, like, he's so good, by the way. Like, I was watching his comps the other day. It was actually him and Gabriel. Like, it was a comp on YouTube of them two. And I was just like, that was so good. Like, them two together, like, those days were so nice, when they were playing together. And yeah, they weren't perfect and they made mistakes, but that is a center back pairing that I can get with. How many years did we go by and we're like, we need center backs, we need a good center back pairing. And we finally have one, and Gabriel and Saliba are pretty formidable. And so, yeah, he is crucial to the project, and there's no way that I'd be looking to sell him ever. Ever. So yeah. O'Malley says Saliba announcement with that fresh number 2 shirt is gonna feel so good. It really is. Like, that number 2 has been calling his name for a while. And so, yeah, I love Saliba. I'm so glad that things are like working out and he's happy, because it wasn't looking good for a while, So there was a time where we were having conversations around whether he would come back and even play for Arsenal. So yeah, it's great. Nashville says locking down Saliba is more important than signing Caicedo. It's pretty damn important, because there's if you have to go out in the market right now and replace William Saliba, you're going to be spending like 75 million on a player that's probably not as good as him, or just spending whatever on a guy that's just subpar. Like, who's out there on the market that you could go get that's anywhere near William Saliba's level? Like, it just is not realistic. So pay the man and just get it done, because you can't lose this guy. You really can't. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Score 7 says we should thank Unai Emery for getting this monster. I wouldn't thank Unai Emery. I would thank the recruitment, because it was well documented that Unai Emery had like very little to say about recruitment at Arsenal while he was here. He had very little say. That was the whole point. They had Sven Mislintat and Raul. Raul did the deals and Sven Mislintat did the recruitment. And so Unai Emery was actually just the coach, and that was it. So I wouldn't thank Unai Emery. I would actually thank maybe Sven Mislintat and the guys that were out there recruiting, Saliba and Martinelli and Kieran Tierney, because despite what happened with like David Luiz not being all that, Ceballos kind of being a bust and Pepe being a bust, those three have been really good for us, so yeah. But I wouldn't thank Unai Emery for shit, because he definitely wasn't somebody that was, because the thing about it is, like, if you say that he was getting his targets and he was the one that was going out there and getting the players, then you can't sit there and say that it wasn't right for him to get sacked. And a lot of people are sitting around revising history and saying, well, Unai Emery, he should have got more time. He should have got the targets that he wanted. If he had done that, he would have done better. But if you're going to sit here and say that I need to give him credit for Saliba and the players that were bought while he was here, then that just completely undermines the point that you're trying to make. Unai Emery didn't really get to make those signings, the signings that he wanted. It was well documented that he wanted other players. He wanted Nzonzi, he wanted Thomas Partey, he wanted Wilfried Zaha. So no, I'm not giving Unai credit. I'm just not. But yeah, I will give Raul and Sven Mislintat, though. I will give them some credit for that. Stubbs says Emery wanted Zaha. Exactly. It's well documented. Score7 says Raul is Don. Man, love that guy. Wanted him to stay. I prefer him over Edu, to be honest. Well, we'd be under, we'd probably be in administration if he was still here. I think there's a lot of revisionism going around on Unai Emery and Raul because people are upset about the way that the season ended. No, I don't think Raul was doing a much better job than Edu is, really. And also Raul didn't have to go through the pandemic. So yeah. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Really, we're beyond that now. Despite people still dragging up old shit. But yeah, Saliba 100% like deserves to be in that crucial category. Let's go with this is an interesting one. Let's go with Tomiyasu. So Tommy is a weird one because he's had 4 really good months, but has been basically injured for the rest of the time. And the problem with Tommy is that he's such a crucial part of the team because he can cover right back and left back. And when he's not there, those options are super thin. And so he's very injury prone, Tommy, and it's unfortunate. He didn't cost us a lot, so it's not like, I'm like, oh my gosh, we paid all this and he's injury prone. But he's also somebody that we're not going to be able to rely on. It's already been reported that he may not be ready for preseason, which would be really bad. Like in terms of like starting out the season, you want to have as many of your players available as possible. And then he's also going to be gone for the Asia Cup, I think, in January and February. So we're going to be losing him for, if he's not there until like September, October, and then he's going to leave like 2 months later, then like, what the hell, So it's, yeah, for him, like, I just think we need to make sure that we have players in the squad that can take up those roles while he's not available, but he ends up being somebody that's pushed way down the pecking order for me. But I'm also not thinking that he's somebody that you can't sell somebody that's injured. So I keep seeing people say, well, should we sell Tomiyasu? Should we sell him? You can't sell him because he has a season-ending injury and it's a knee injury that needed surgery. So like nobody's going to buy him. So like we can't really sell him. So I would say keep. But he's just not somebody that we're going to be able to rely on, especially at the beginning of the season, which is really unfortunate. But saying all that, I actually love Tomiyasu. I love the profile. I like his versatility. I think when he's, fit and firing, he's very good. And sometimes you need shutdown defenders. You need a good 1v1 defender out there because a lot of times, like Ben White at right back is really, really good unless he's going up against like one of the better dribblers. And we know Zinchenko is not a great defender. So it's nice to have somebody like Tomiyasu in the team that if you're going up against like a Matoma or a Salah or somebody like that, that's a really good dribbler, that you can just stick him in there and just kind of shut them down. But the thing is like you have to be available to do that. And so that's the biggest issue with Tomiyasu. But I like him in the squad. I don't think there's any reason to move him on. And I think if he can, recover from his injury, maybe go to the Asia Cup and then return for the second half of the season and be a good squad player, then we'll be fine. But if he can't remain like fit and he keeps getting these injuries, then you will have to look to move him on. But it's definitely not something that I'm thinking like it's a pressing issue. Abscess says, agree. He does need to work on his fitness, but I like him. Score says, Tomiyasu is a good player, but unfortunately I'd sell. Just can't fit if we can get that Simikan lad. That will be good. But Tomiyasu's versatility is great, but he just can't stay fit. I just think you can't really sell him if he's injured. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's almost like a non-conversation right now. Like you have to keep him. But, if in the second half of the season, if he was, to come back in and to still be getting those little injuries, maybe next summer you look to move him on. But I think like a lot of people feel the same, like he's just not fit enough. But I think the versatility that he offers is so good. Neil says, Tommy has been unfortunate. I keep him and give him another chance. He can play right back, center back. He's the best at dealing with the long ball and crosses into our box. He is. Saida says, I'm undecided about Tomiyasu. He isn't reliable, and I'd much prefer a player that can actually slot in whenever we do have an injury. Such a shame because I really rate him. I do too. Like that's the sucky part is because I feel like a lot of people really rate him. And I do. I'm one of those people. C. Walder says keep. He's an incredible backup. Drew says, can you sell an injured player? That's kind of like my main point. You can't really sell him. Crispy says next season is make or break, but defo keep. I actually think next season is make or break for maybe 3 or 4 players, to be honest. Chris Frazier says Tommy's earned 1 more year, but another year of injuries and he'd need to be replaced. Shame. Dean says keep, but needs to stay fit for next season or sell in the summer. So all of us are pretty much in the same thing. Tomiyasu, you could stay. 100%. Like, there's no reason to like move him on. Do you know what I mean? Or try to like force him out because 1, he's injured, and like 2, like we should be addressing these positions in the summer. Arsenal are said to be interested in bringing in a center back and a right back, which would mean that like if Tomiyasu were not able to stay fit, that we would have somebody else to come in that's not named Rob Holding, you know? And I think that's just what we're trying to avoid, right? Really, Rob Holding should be gone. But yeah. Let's go with Eddie. Eddie. So I see a lot of people saying like we should sell Eddie Nketiah. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Eddie Nketiah is not going anywhere this summer. The contract, the reason why I had such a issue with the contract that we gave him was that contract said to me that he was going to be there longer than a lot of people would want him to be. You can't put him on almost 100 bags a week in a long-term contract and then expect a Crystal Palace or, you know, a team like that because really if Eddie were to leave Arsenal, he's not going to go to, I don't think, a top 10 team. I just don't. Like, I think he's going to go to the lower end of the spectrum. And those types of teams do not pay £100,000 per week unless it's a player that's going to guarantee them 20 goals per season. You think about Eddie's probably getting more money than the likes of Tony and what's his name at Fulham. And those guys are much better strikers than Eddie is. So, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those where we basically like tethered ourselves to him for a certain amount of time. Now that could change next season. I think the way that things panned out this past season where, you know, Jesus was injured and we kind of started off with Eddie. Eddie got that little injury. We brought in Trossard and then we never saw Eddie again. I think that was very telling to me that at the end of the day, Arteta decided that the right thing to do was to play Trossard because he's a better player and he's more similar to Jesus. So if he's down the pecking order right down to number 3, then he's going to get less playing time next season than, you know, he did this past season. And so I think for him, that should maybe give him an indication of like where he stands, and maybe he'll leave next summer. But hold on. But this season, I don't see him going anywhere. And so I think Eddie is going to be in the keep pile, no matter how disappointed people are going to be by that. Jorn says keep. Saida says, Eddie, undecided. I would say sell, but I don't think our attack is the biggest issue at the moment. So I'd rather address the issues we have and look to upgrade in Jan or this or next summer. Dobbs says, also, I like Eddie a lot. I'm happy to keep him till next summer when the striker market is looking better. Neil says, we will keep Eddie until someone offers us a decent amount of money so we can move him on. It was a mistake to give him such high wages, just shows the owners wouldn't spend on the quality that we need. Marco says, honestly, I don't know if Balogun is better than Eddie. I really believe Eddie would score 25 goals a season in France easy. So we have no choice but to keep, knowing the lack of option in the market. Jill says, I think we should keep him because he is a nice striker, but after a few games starting in a row, he starts to slow down. I think my issue with Eddie is that I don't find him to be a great option off the bench, and that's kind of what you need. If Jesus is going to start the majority of the games, then Eddie's job is to make a difference off of the bench, and if he can't do that, then it's kind of like, you know, unless he gets a run of games, I feel like he's pretty, you know, he doesn't make that much of an impact when he comes off of the bench. And so, yeah, he's somebody that I think we're just waiting to see if somebody will give us a decent amount of money for him. But I think in the short term, he's going to be here. If it were my choice, I would never have given him that contract and I would have moved him on. But, what can you do? O'Malley says, keep Eddie. He does get better every year. Would sell if we could get top 10 striker. Yeah. Abscess says sell, and sell. DNC says we will keep Eddie, but I would personally sell and get a different type of striker. I think a lot of us are saying like we would do something different, but we know that he'll probably stay. Score 7 says let's keep it real. And Nketiah has to go, not good enough. We can do better in that area. And Nketiah wouldn't smell a game at Man City. Benham, and get me Rasmus Højlund or Ivan Toney. Rasmus Højlund is not going to come to Arsenal and sit on the bench. Like, that's the thing. It's like we're in that position where I think Jesus is going to get another year to be our starting number 9. And then the season after 2024, 2025, we'll probably look to bring in a striker that is going to be like the guy for us, so I think it's about timing, and I just don't see us bringing in like a starting number 9 when the whole reason why Jesus came to Arsenal was to be the starting number 9. I know people are like, there's no feelings in football, but you still have to manage the team and you have to manage the personalities. If you were to bring in a number 9, like a Tony or a Vlahovic right now, after just a year of Jesus being in the team, you kill him. You probably won't be able to use him anymore. And Jesus is important, so I would just say, like, we're probably not going to get a striker. And I don't necessarily feel like scoring goals is our biggest issue. I know people are not happy with the options that we have, but quite frankly, like, the midfield is more of an issue in the defense. If we had the same exact attack this season, but we had the ability to defend like normal people, we would have won the league. So, I know people don't want Eddie, but that's probably what you're going to get. Let's see. Neil says, problem is I can't see him getting a run of games when Jesus and Trossard are fit. Only see him in cup games only. And moving him naturally down the pecking order will make moving him on, not this summer, but the next summer, probably just a little bit easier. So, yeah. It's one of those, when we gave him the contract, we decided that that's the guy that we're going with, unfortunately. So, there's, I don't know, he's going to be kept. There's 170 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's go on to El Neni. This is an interesting one because I think the initial feeling on like him getting a new deal was that people were convinced that he got it because Arsenal like want to keep him, but it was in good faith. Like, you don't want somebody to run their deal down or have their deal end and still be recovering from a long-term injury. And so basically, like, you just want to take care of the people around you. You don't want him to not be making any money, while he's recovering for this injury. I don't think we'll ever see El Neni really play for Arsenal again. He may be in the squad, but we probably won't ever see him in a game day squad. Do you know what I mean? Like, he'll probably make the 25 or whatever. We'll probably move him on, like, maybe not this summer, but maybe in January. He's doing his coaching badges. He's not somebody that I'm particularly worried about getting any sort of playing time, but he's one of those where I'm just thinking like he needs to be moved on, though. Like, he had that injury, so maybe it's going to be difficult to do it in this summer, but it needs to happen in January. Like, I know that he's a nice guy to have around, but you can have nice guys around that are actually good at football. And El Neni has been around since like 2015, January of 2015. or 2016, somewhere like around there. And he actually went on loan in his prime, So he's just like a very average player. And yeah, every team has like maybe one of them in their team, but we have like a couple. And so time to move him on. I know why we gave him that little extension was just so that he was not without a paycheck, when he's dealing with this injury. But Arsenal need to move on from these types of players and bring in more quality. But yeah, El Neni can go for sure. Neil says players don't see it like fans do, though. Moving to a club the size of Arsenal is massive. A lot of players at smaller clubs, lifestyle wages, playing in big games, etc. Depends on the choices they have. O'Malley says he can be our Scott Carson. I mean, he could, but Scott Carson is a goalkeeper, not a midfielder. And I think midfield, you want to have as much quality. Your third goalkeeper can be shit. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's different. Dean, exactly. It was a sympathy contract for El Neni. I get it, but we need to be ruthless and move on from certain dead wood. I agree. Mark says people forget that we have a rule in the Premier League. You need 4 players in the squad who have trained at the club for 3 years before 18 years. Our 4 are Saka, ESR, Reese, and Nketiah, and 8 homegrown needed. Absa says we don't need El Neni. There are rules. I get that as well. You can't always just move people on. You have to think about that as well. So that makes sense. Roman says defensively, I trust El Neni more than Jorginho for next season, only next season. I think El Neni is actually like a much lower quality player than Jorginho. I know that Jorginho has his issues, athletically, but quite frankly, like Arsenal are mostly an on the ball team. Like we like to control possession, we like to control the game. And so El Neni being better defensively doesn't serve us because if he's touching the ball, which our midfielders tend to have to be very ball heavy, like he's like a non-factor. You have to, so I don't know. I think Jorginho for me is a superior player, much superior player to El Neni. Just because El Neni can run around for a long time doesn't really mean anything to me, so I think El Neni needs to be moved on. But let's talk about Jorginho. I think there's an interesting bit of information or news that came out today that Jorginho is actually up for sale and Arsenal are willing to move him on for the same price that we bought him for in January, which is about 12 million pounds. And Sarri wants him at Lazio, and he was like always meant to go back to Italy, but he ended up moving to us in January. This is an interesting one because at the moment, if you put El Neni aside, we would have Jorginho and Thomas Partey. We're looking to bring in Declan Rice, and then people want Caicedo. I think that's a lot of defensive holding midfield, like a lot of resources towards a position where only like one person plays there at a time. And so somebody was always going to have to be moved on. We had this conversation before, like the amount of midfielders that we technically have and people want to bring in is just not. I know that we need more quality players, but like sometimes you just have too many players in one position. And so for DMs or holding midfielders, I don't care if, Jorginho is technically a deep line playmaker, he's a DM. He plays in that lone 6 role. That's too many. I think you need maximum 3. So Jorginho moving on wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. The one thing about Jorginho that I do like, though, is that he has the experience and he's played in Champions League. He's won it before. And losing him and Xhaka will be losing quite a bit of experience at one time. Now, obviously, if you replace those two with Rice and Caicedo, you're getting superior players in like quality. But, the experience is still important for a young team that's a lot of them have never played in Champions League before. So for me, it's undecided. I'm leaning more towards it's okay to sell him if you bring in the quality. But like if you're not going to bring in Caicedo and Rice, like keep Jorginho because like he really grew on me. Like I think that's what it is he grew on me and I can see the value in him. But I wanted him to replace Elneny in the team, to be that third DM option. But like 4 DMs is quite a bit. So yeah. It's interesting. Dave says the disrespect on Jorginho from Arsenal fans is crazy. By far one of the most technically gifted midfielders in the league. Jet next door says Rice and Caicedo were being signed as 8s, not 6s. Partey and Jorginho are the 6s. I don't agree. I think Rice is actually being brought in to play the 6th role. Like, that's my feeling, So, yeah. Caicedo is interesting because he can play the 6th role, but he can also play right back, and he can also play a different style of 8, not necessarily like the typical 8/10, like a little bit different. So I actually think if either one of them ended up playing 8, it'd probably be Caicedo. But Rice, I think he's being brought in to be the number 6. That's my feeling on it. Everybody has their guess, but that's how I feel. But I don't think Rice and Caicedo are being brought in to play 8. That doesn't really, I feel like that doesn't make sense to me. But I hear what you're saying. We're all kind of guessing. Saida says, it may sound controversial, but I think I'd rather keep Jorginho over Partey, provided we sign Caicedo. I rate Partey higher, but again, he isn't as reliable. Jacob says Rice won't be playing this sole 6 role. I think he will, you guys. I think that's the position that he's going to be brought in to play. I don't know, but that's kind of what I think. Yo-Yo says Xhaka, Partey, Jorginho, Elneny, Arteta, Edu have to do what is necessary. And yeah, it's like Elneny, he should be moved on. And then one of Jorginho or Partey, I think, needs to go. And then Xhaka is already gone in order for you to make room for these new players. And I know that some people want to hoard all these guys. They're like, well, what if we get injuries? But the reality is it's still quality over quantity. And so if you were to have, like, let's say an example of you have Odegaard, Viera, and Emil Smith Rowe, and then you have Partey, Caicedo, and Rice. That is a good amount of midfielders, because really Emil Smith Rowe wasn't even getting any playing time, and he really probably deserves some, right? So I don't think we necessarily need like 8 or 9 midfielders. We probably need about 6 for all the competitions that we're in, and they just need to have more quality than anything. But yeah, like, it's an interesting one. Jorginho, he could go, but he could stay. I'm undecided on it, but we'll see. Speaking of midfield, let's talk about Thomas Partey for a second. Now, there are reports that there's teams in Italy interested in him, but he wants to stay in North London. And unless something were to happen, I really don't want to get into it. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, unless that were to happen, I don't think there's any reason to get rid of Thomas Partey. I think, obviously, like, he has not had the best ends to a season, and he has kind of been an issue every end of the season because he hasn't been reliable. But the issue with Thomas Partey is what we've learned over the last 3 seasons is he cannot be your most important player. Now, if he is a piece of a puzzle and you have him and he can also play certain roles and, share time, I think he's kind of really good for that, because I think people forget that, like, Thomas Partey on his day is one of the best midfielders in the league. So I don't necessarily just think you get rid of that player because he's not reliable. I think you put him in a role that suits him more, which is a part of a squad, not your most important player. That is the issue, is we made him our shining light. He was the most important player, and he just could never be that guy. And at Atletico, he wasn't that guy. He was a piece of the puzzle, and he was perfectly fine just doing that. So I would say keep him unless the bad thing happens, but keep him. No reason. He's not necessarily crucial, but I think you have Thomas Partey, an experienced player, played in, I think you'd want to keep him, just in case. Yo-Yo says the squad that starts the season doesn't have to be the squad that finishes the season. Gent says Partey was magnificent last season. So it's just his fitness. And maybe if he doesn't have to play every single game, he can stay a little bit fresher. And I think the one thing that I like about, the way that Pep does, like, his rotation, which, it's weird. I feel like Arteta should learn a little bit from this. Like, it's easier said than done, right? Because Pep has a better squad. But he doesn't just like play a player for a game and then like leave him on the bench for 4 weeks and then play him again. They get like a run of games. And I think like somebody like Thomas Partey is obviously like a player that needs a run of games. Most players do. So if, you have Rice and Caicedo and you have Partey as well, maybe you give him a run of like 5 games, and you sit one of the others. Or Partey gets a run of fixtures in the Premier League and somebody else plays in the Champions League. I don't know. But it's one of those where he's just not somebody I would look to move on unless the bad thing happens. So yeah. The Bang says we need to stop undermining Partey. Let's not forget what he brings to us. He is quality. Just because he had a bad couple of games at the end of the season does not justify him as a player. Johan says Partey is the epitome of quality and depth. DNC says keep Partey. He was one of our players of the season for most of it, but dropped off in the last month or two. And to be fair to him, everybody pretty much dropped off. So yeah, I would say definitely keep. Now let's go to I should just start picking them and stop like trying to be cute. Okay, let's go with Gabriel. I just don't know like where else to put it. Like Gabriel is so underrated, I still feel like, from the fan base. And I think there's a lot of damage done early on. He made some mistakes. And usually what happens is our players make mistakes and then rivals, pile on. And then our own fan base, because they're upset that rivals are bantering them, turn on the players and say things that maybe they don't mean, or they don't realize that like you don't actually need to pile on them because you're feeling some type of way because rivals are talking shit, right? And that happened with Ben White, and I think that also happened with Gabriel. Gabriel was really, really good last season. Made some mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes. Like if you guys are like, I don't know if you guys watch other teams other than Arsenal, but like I watch other teams' players make fucking mistakes every week, and it's just like the name of the game, right? But I thought Gabriel, after like October, after he signed his like maybe it was like after he signed his new deal, whenever that was, he was really consistent beyond then. And we really didn't see any sort of like hiccups until like, towards the end where everybody was kind of like not as good, right? But Gabriel has become such a good player in these last 3 seasons, and I think people forget that he was here when we were in the trenches. He was here when Socrates and these guys were here. Do you know what I mean? So he's been here for a while. He's really improved, especially like on the ball. I think he's improved. He didn't get any red cards this season. Nobody did. And he just kind of like has grown up quite a bit, this season, I thought. And so, yeah, still makes the odd mistake and probably still needs to maybe work on his, like long balls, maybe a little bit. But Gabriel for me is fucking crucial. Like that guy, he started every game this season. Every game. That's consistency. We talk about players that have been unreliable. Him and Saka in particular have been, you know, Saka appeared in every single game that we played in the Premier League. Gabriel started every game. And so those are the foundations of a player that's going to take us, far. So for me, Gabriel is crucial. There was a time where I felt like people wanted him sold, but sometimes you have to allow a player to develop, and then you get the best out of them. He was 22 when he arrived. He's 25 now. But I love Gabriel. So he's one of my favorite players. So yeah. Keenan says Gabriel should be our captain next year. Well, I wouldn't take it from Odegaard, but he's definitely a leader, for sure. Jacob says Gabriel is consistent, in my opinion, will be one of the best defenders in a few years. Being Uki says, even with the mistakes, I didn't want Gabriel to leave, wanted him bench, but I still thought he was a top center back. I hear that. Saida says, I'm surprised Gabriel doesn't get picked for Brazil national team squad. I feel like a lot of our players are underrated. Sometimes, I think people have to wait their turn. Some managers prefer players over others. Like there's just a hierarchy in politics when it comes to national teams. And so I don't think Gabriel is necessarily like, first of all, I don't think Arsenal in particular is very like from a Brazilian perspective is very like well liked. And it's like Martinelli was struggling to make the squad, and Gabriel has also struggled to make the squad. But I think once Arsenal are like a consistent Champions League team and they're making the same type, like they're playing the same way that they are in the Premier League in Europe as well, it'll be hard to ignore them. But sometimes you have to wait your turn, especially, you're somebody that plays from one of the better nations as well. Like you have to wait your turn. And so Gabriel, he missed out, but I think he'll have his time, especially when they change coaches. I think he'll have his time as well. Um, Off the radar says he was our captain for a few minutes. Haha. Yeah, he was. And Neil says fans think everyone has to be good as Saliba. Never going to happen. Both built a good partnership, and that's all that matters. Jet Next Door says people saying Gab is not calm on the ball, don't know ball. You need an aggressor and a reader, a la Ferdinand and Vidic. Gabriel is our bruiser. And it's all about partnerships. I think we get too bogged down in like, oh, Saliba was carrying Gabriel and Gabriel was carrying Saliba. Their partnership, they work together. They're a very, very good partnership. And so I don't think we always have to pin them up against each other. And they're completely different as well. So, yeah. Off the radar says Gabriel passing through the lines is highly underrated. Yeah, I think he's done a lot better. Oh, and if Brandon, you don't like what you're watching, you're more than welcome to like leave the stream. I've seen like you've had quite a few messages or comments you don't really like what I'm saying. You can go watch Lee Gunner right now. I'm sure he has tons of content that you can watch on playback. But if you don't like what I'm saying, you can go. Like, I don't know why people sit around and watch things that they don't like. It's actually not because they don't like it, it's because they're miserable and they hate their lives. Sorry, your life is not great, but I'm going to say how I feel. Thank you for the view. It helps my channel grow. Like, people are so freaking weird. If you don't like it, goodbye. Sean says, I think the added appeal of Martin Odegaard as a visible captain is that he's viewed with a shade of neutrality, less animated by the officials. I can see what you're saying there. Keenan says, Jess, does Terry get paid for his therapy session with Lee Gunner? I mean, shows. They like that show. I don't know. They just I just feel like they yell at each other all day long. Like it's crazy. But yeah. So definitely Gabrielle is a crucial 100%. Let's go with this guy, Emile Smith-Rowe. He has I was thinking this like earlier that if Arsenal were to pull off the unthinkable and were to bring in Rice and Caicedo, I do think that means that we wouldn't bring in like another number 8 or number 10 that's more attacking, right? Because you're not going to bring in 3 midfielders in a window of that level. That's pretty much the entire budget gone, right? So I think that would mean that like Emile Smith-Rowe and Viera would have to be more trusted. I think that that's what that means, And so it makes me a little nervous just because I feel like the two of them in different ways have had their struggles. Emile Smith-Rowe's has been more injuries and things like that, and Viera's has been adaptation. And so, like let's say something were to happen to, one of our players and they had to play big games, they would have a big burden on their shoulders because they're players that haven't really been trusted, that would be like thrust into the spotlight next season. But I do think that sometimes you have to put people in the fire and see if they survive, and trial by fire, And so ESR for me has to have a really big 2023-2024 season. Like it's not even a game. I'm seeing, all the pictures of him training and working with strength and conditioning coaches. He needs everything. But more than anything, I think maybe strength and conditioning and getting his physicality back up will give him the confidence. But that's really what he needs. Like Emile Smith-Rowe needs confidence. Like he needs to be able to get out there and get on the ball and feel like he can make things happen. Because my biggest thing with Emile Smith-Rowe in midfield, and it's also an issue with Viera as well, is you can't hide. You need to get on the ball and make things happen. And like Odegaard and, Partey and Xhaka, have done over the last 2 seasons, they don't hide, they get on the ball, they're high touch, you have to show up. And I think what ends up happening is when you have like somebody like Emile Smith-Rowe in midfield, the game kind of passes them by, and they become a little safe, and don't really take risks. And so Emile Smith-Rowe has to have a big preseason. I think he'll start off with like this international tournament that he has coming up with the under 21s for England. And then he has to have a big preseason and a big season, because if you don't bring in another number 8/10, then you have to rely on the players that we have in the team already. And that's probably a good thing, because then they'll get more playing time, and then we can see what they're really about. But Emile Smith-Rowe has to have a really big season next season. But I have him in the keep because he's not going anywhere. But I have him in the keep just in general as well, because like from a business perspective, like there's no way that you could get a good fee for him anyway. If you wanted to sell him, nobody's going to take him on because he's been out for so long. And I think he just about deserves another season. He's been out due to injury, and that's like, and it was something that was like completely out of his control. So I think Emile Smith-Rowe is definitely a keep, but there's a lot of pressure on him to have a big season, especially if we don't bring in another 8/10. For real. Samson says, Partey is crucial. People are forgetting that 3 or 4 of the last season, he actually carried the team. Nashville says, if we bring in Rice and Caicedo, ESR is surplus because we are playing 2 heavy mids and Zinchenko. But there's different horses for different courses. Like if you bring in Caicedo and Rice and you decide to do that thing where you invert on the other side, so you don't play Zinchenko, you play Kiwior, Gabriel, Saliba / White, and then you play like Caicedo at right back. Let's say you do that. Then you would play still like your DM, and then maybe you do play with lighter weight 8s. I still think that, I don't know if Emile Smith-Rowe becomes surplus. I still think you need something different. Emile Smith-Rowe would offer something different in the 8 role than Caicedo or Rice, so I don't necessarily know if he becomes surplus, but I don't necessarily believe that every single game you'll see Caicedo, Rice, and Odegaard. Like, I think you'll see different variations of midfield based on what we need. Because again, like, if you don't have Tomiyasu, you're probably your best next option if you were to bring in Caicedo is to play him at right back, if there's like a Mitoma or a tricky winger or something like that. So I don't think he becomes surplus, but there's going to be so many games and you get injuries. And so somebody like, Emile Smith-Rowe, I think ends up becoming more crucial next season. If you do only bring in those 2 midfielders, because you don't bring in somebody of Emile Smith-Rowe's talent, or his skill set. So if you need somebody like that, you got to use him. Off the Radar says ESR is needed for cup runs. I agree. And another thing is like, he's needed for cup runs. And that's the thing, is cups are not going to be able to just be like willy-nilly next season. I think there's an underlying kind of like feeling in the fan base that like cups need to be taken very serious next season. And so, yes, there'll be some rotation, but the players that are playing are going to be required to get like beyond, the quarterfinal, the round of 16, they need to get beyond that, so Emile Smith-Rowe, he's going to be important. Austin says, I feel like ESR and Reece switched play style this year. The ability to go at guys and be aggressive is crucial next year. Reece Nelson definitely has that. Jackson says ESR is a keep, but has to give up the shirt number. Oh man, I don't like that. Lionide says, I can't see ESR story ending good. Well, they can give him another chance to like show that he deserves to be here. And like, this is not the end. And that's like, people are like, this is such an important season, but then like the next season, like if somebody like Emile Smith-Rowe doesn't show out and doesn't play well, like somebody like Eddie doesn't get a lot of playing time, those 2 players could end up going. You know what I mean? And so it is important for Emile Smith-Rowe to show that he can do it. And if he can't, then he'll be sold. Like, it's so important. Neil says, I only sell him for a good amount, let's say 40, 50 million. He's got that last season for me. Hopefully he can stay fit. He's lost virtually 1 whole season of development, so let's see what he can do. Yeah, this is pretty much what it is, right? So let's see what he can do. Let's go with Reece. Reece Nelson has really surprised, I think, a lot of people, including me. Like, I definitely don't know that I actually believe that he would be able to work his way back into this team, but he has. And his skill set, like somebody else was already saying, is so important to the way that we play because Martinelli is so direct on that left-hand side. And so you don't want to lose that. And Trossard, as good as a signing as he was, I think it ended up making more sense for him to be central because he plays more like, a false nine than or a creative like number 10 than anything else. And so having somebody like Reece Nelson with his directness was so useful towards the back end of the season. And unlike some of the other players that were coming off the bench, and weren't making any sort of impact, Reece Nelson, you always felt his presence off the bench. I actually think he deserved more playing time, and that's the only way that giving him this long-term deal is going to work. He needs playing time. When Martinelli and Saka need a break, you need to trust Reece Nelson to come in and do the business because that's the only way that we're going to know, like, what he's capable of. I think he could score more goals and get more assists if he got more playing time. So Reece Nelson is definitely a keep, not necessarily crucial, but somebody that's going to be important next season. Again, I'm not sure if Arsenal are going to actually go out there and bring in a winger. So if they don't, Reece Nelson becomes even more important. He's really good. He's really a good player. He really surprised me. Keenan says crucial as a squad player, signing Reece on a new contract was a masterstroke. He changes games, provides great competition, is relatively inexpensive and homegrown. Andy Nguyen says not a Nottingham Forest goal. I was there for that day. Like, he was great on the day. He really was. Thabang says the English players we have are just average, except for a few. They need to be moved on. Nketiah, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Off the radar says he's impactful, I must say. And that's the thing. It's like players, you need squad players, and they have to make an impact off the bench. They have to be able to use the minutes if they're, very well, like, even if they're a small amount of minutes, they have to be able to use them well. And I think Reece Nelson did that, and he's an example to some other players that just kind of go out there and are like, what am I doing? No offense, but like some of the guys coming off the bench were like nothing. Ben White, boop. He's crucial. I mean, an Arteta player. I mean, remember we sit here, 50 million for Ben White. That's a fucking steal, man. The guy can play center back. He can play right back. I do have to say that at the end of the season, when we played with Kiwior at left back and we played with Ben White at center back, I forgot how good he was there. He really is like slick in the center back position. And so I think that's why, like, we saw Arteta kind of try things at the end of the season. I know people weren't super open to it because it was like, well, the season is over and blah, blah. He was trying things for next season, it looked like. And, if you have Saliba and Ben White, then you don't necessarily need to go out there and get another center back, but you do need a right back because if Ben's not playing right back, there needs to be somebody else. So I think that's the direction that Arsenal will go in. They'll bring in a right back. But Ben White can play in both positions. He had a really good second season, I thought. He made a good account of himself. And he's just like perfect. The athleticism is there, the footballing IQ is there, the technical ability is there. He can still go up a couple of levels. He's only 25 years old, so he can still get better. And yeah, I love Ben White. He's probably top 5, like one of my favorite players. Like, the guy is absolute like mustard. Sin says if Reece was that good, he would have signed ages ago, like Joe. If Reece was that good, he would have been signed ages ago, like Joe. I don't know. I think Reece Nelson is good, but some players, they lose their way, and I think he lost his way there. But Reece Nelson is a good player. I don't know if Willock being sold has anything to do with that. Austin says Ben White is a better shithouser is the best shithouser on the team. He's the best rewatch after the game. I agree. Marco says Arteta likes chemistry between Ben White and Saka, which is why I think we might bring in a center back instead of a right back. Well, we will see. We will see, because Arteta definitely did try it out at the end of the season. He was willing to break up that Saka and Ben White partnership, and he put Thomas Partey there instead. So, yeah, I feel like a right back will come in, but, a center back wouldn't be bad either. Um, it wouldn't be bad either. Seawalder says elite housery, exactly. Yo-Yo says G6 white not playing for their countries has been a blessing for the club. I don't think Ben White gives a damn. I don't think he cares like at all. Saida says, love Ben White. I hope he gets rotated properly because towards the end of the season, his performances started to drop. I agree. Having some time off, like a couple games here and there, I think, would be good for everybody. Sean says, honestly, Reese has shown that he's worthy of some league starts following midweek CL fixtures to preserve Saka's legs and angle from Hakasaka approach some league sides utilize. Did you ever watch? Are you a Laker fan? Or do you remember that era of the NBA of Hackashack? Because that is when like the NBA was fucking elite. Okay. But like, yeah, Hakasaka, that's exactly what it's been. I mean, they are kicking his ankles like nobody's business. It's actually insane. Roman says, Jess, don't you think we will have to sacrifice someone to get the money? And don't forget FFP since you want to spend so much this window. Well, for me, Roman, like if we were to bring in Caicedo and Rice, like the said, transfer budget is 200 million. So that would be almost all of that. And then if we brought in a right back, we would have more than enough to cover that because, we pretty much sold Xhaka already. And we know Tierney's going to go. We know Balogun's going to go. So I think, for me, like 3 or 4 top players is what we need. I know we're not going to get 5 or 6 players, and that's not what my expectation is. I think just over 200 million is probably what we'll spend. So, yeah, I think, we will have to sell, and we definitely will. Like, we definitely will, for sure. I think there's already some players that we know for sure are going to go. So let's talk about one of those. Tierney, the sell pile. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, y'all, but he's going to go, and he's probably going to go to Newcastle, and he'll probably be good there. My only problem is the fee. You got to make sure you get more than 30 million for him. I think he's a 35 to 40 million pound player, especially because Newcastle have the money. So, like, let's not play games. Like, you have the money, and there's nobody else that you could get that's better. So, I think, Tierney, it's sad to see him go. Like, it would be sad to see him go, but ultimately, like, we don't really play with that style of fullback. And I know some people feel like, well, why can't we just play the way Tierney plays? That's just no manager really does that. Like, no top manager really just they play their style and they recruit players in that play that way. You use what you have at the beginning, but as time goes on, you start to recruit and bring in players that suit your style. And he doesn't necessarily do that. Arteta likes the either center back style, fullback, or the midfield style. And he doesn't really fit either of those, even though he's one of the best on his day when he's fit and firing as that overlapping attacking fullback. So probably the right time to cash in on him, before it's too late. He looked jaded most of the season anyway, maybe because he was unhappy with his playing time, which makes sense. But, ultimately, like, this is what happens. You have to sell players sometimes. So he'll probably go, but I wish him well. Sean says, wish him well, but he doesn't really fit all that well with our approach. He's tried, but it's a square peg in a round hole. I agree. Yo-Yo says, I'm judging Edu harshly on every outgoing. The club has to start selling well sooner rather than later. I agree with that for sure. Marco says 50 million for Tierney. If he goes to Newcastle, no way. We hand a quality player for them for a low fee. Oh, wow. I said 35 to 40 is probably what I would expect, especially with his injury record. But I hear y'all. Keenan says Tierney is a 50 million pound player in today's market. Tony says KT will be good at Newcastle until Saka ends his career. Keenan says Fabio has got to bulk up and come good this year. Yeah, he does for sure. Mohammed says, are you doing this based on what you think will happen or what you want to happen? Kind of both, like a little bit of both. Like I kind of talk about what I think is going to happen, what I would do, but this is based on mostly what I want to see happen. Like, but I also use like common sense too. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I want to keep Tierney, even though like of course, I would love to keep Tierney, but like common sense would say that this is probably a good time to sell him. You know what I mean? So using a little bit of common sense, but also mixing like my own feelings in there and stuff too. But yeah, we'll definitely lose Tierney. This is a fine time for it. Lokonga, so move him on. Never really warmed to Sambi Lokonga, I think. I always felt like there was a couple of things that he said in the media that I didn't really like. It kind of reeked of I've arrived, but I haven't really done anything to warrant this level of like I should be getting this playing time. He spoke about, Roberto Martinez with Belgium. He was like openly disappointed about not getting called up. And I'm thinking like, I don't think you should be called up. You're not that good, whatever. Sambi, I think, suffered from maybe a little bit of misprofiling from an Arsenal perspective. Like if we're gonna play a lone pivot, you should have never used Sambi Lokonga because he's just not a player that you play in a single pivot. He's much better in a double pivot as like more of a deep line playmaker type. He just has like zero defensive awareness. He's very casual and aloof on the ball. And in the Premier League, especially at the base of your midfield, that's kind of like the last thing you want. And he needs somebody with that defensive presence next to him, and we just don't really play that way. As a number 8, he doesn't have enough creativity or goal scoring ability really to fit in there. So he's just somebody that I feel like doesn't fit and probably was misprofiled. And I really do think Vincent Kompany should take him because he's the one who told us he was like the next Yaya Toure. Like, this guy, you need to take him. Since you rate him so highly, you need to take him. But I think it was just like a misprofiling type of thing and a mismatch. And he's somebody that needs to start every game to feel important. He's not somebody that can be a part of a squad and work his way into the team, so he's somebody that I think we should sell, and I think Burnley should buy him. Saida says Lokonga should be loaned. I would like us to get a good fee for him, but then again, will he do well if he was to go on a loan? Might as well sell and try to get as much as possible. I mean, the Crystal Palace loan was pretty telling to me as well. Like, they didn't really play him that much either. So I think just sell and then try to get like what you paid for him. You're not going to get more than that. But yeah, Lokonga. The bank says, "Oh my God, for F's sake, Lokonga man, slow as a turtle, move him on. He's not even that good anyway." Yeah, it wasn't great. Muhammad says, "Jess, you are kind. Just say he is shit." I'm not gonna say because I don't think he's shit. I just think it's a misprofiling. Like, I think in the right circumstances he would be fine. But definitely not in the Premier League and definitely not for Arsenal. But if Burnley want to take him on, they should because he was on recommendation from Vincent Kompany. We got done. We got done so bad. It's so funny. Yo-Yo says Sambi wasn't better than Matteo Guendouzi, who wasn't particularly great either. Very frustrating signing. I think what Arsenal did was they went and they were like, okay, we want to bring in a center back, we want to bring in Odegaard, and we want to bring in a goalkeeper. And then we had a little bit of change left, and we thought, okay, well, let's take a punt on a couple of players. And those 2 players ended up being Nuno Tavares and Sambi Lokonga. Those 2 players didn't really work out, but the other 3 did. And Tommy as well. So 3 worked, or 4, like 3.5, because Tommy's been injured. But like, let's just say 4 players worked and 2 didn't. It was a punt. It just didn't work out. And Josh KB says Lokonga is done. Yeah, he's not going to come back. He's definitely gonna. I think he should be sold. No loan. Like, for what? Keenan says Sambi is better than Kefren Turam, who Liverpool will probably end up dropping 35 million on. Oh, that is a statement. I mean, Kefren Turam is actually physically suited to the Premier League, and I think he's probably better than Sambi, but this is what we should tell people that he is so we could sell. He should be sold. So let's move on to Robert. Just sell. Move on. I mean, I like him as a person, but like, he's just somebody that you don't want him playing like any important games for you. And from an Arsenal perspective, everything is important now. And I don't want to rehash, the shitty if we had played somebody else and played Kiwior, because we all know we probably should have, but we didn't. And so we just have to kind of hold that. But Holding's got to go. And I don't care who takes him, but if it's 5 million, 10 million, whatever, move him on, because I don't want to see him at Arsenal next season. No offense. It's just I don't want there to be a scenario where he could play. That's the truth. He's one of the most frustrating players to me, because he's just nothing like any of the players that we have. He's just not it. You know, the holding wars this season were insane, but he should be moved on. If we're serious, we'll move him on. We'll make sure we have 4 top center backs that we can use, and just move on from him, because there's no point in having this nice guy around if he's going to end up playing down the stretch every season and we're just going to go down the shitter. Saida says Holding should have been sold 2 seasons ago. Josh says Holding out. Mohammed says sell. Thanks for the memories. Yeah, it's one of those. G Dash, thank you so much for your super chat. Says big fan. I think our whole transfer window hinges on Saliba signing a new contract and getting a right back. Holding has to be replaced. Yeah, I think we realized that the biggest gulf in quality in terms of our players is not necessarily like losing Thomas Partey or losing Jesus. It was losing William Saliba, and having to use Holding just kind of ended everything, and just thinking about it just makes me like he just has to go. Like there's not much else to really say about it. Clement says Holding definitely should have gone like 3 seasons ago. Yeah, there's some players that have just been around for way too long, and he's one of them, and he's just never really been that good. Tony says Robbie the hair Holdinho sell. Thanks for the cups. Yo-Yo says Holding is a culture dressing room merchant. Tired of this club sometimes. Ify says Austin Trusty isn't on that list yet. For sure, Arteta needs to let Holding go this time. Austin Trusty is going to be sold. I don't have him in here, but he's going to be sold. He was never going to play for Arsenal. It was a clever use of the loan market. He went to Birmingham, became their player of the season, and Arsenal will sell him this summer. So we'll never see Austin Trusty really play for Arsenal, but even he probably would have been better than Rob Holding, I have to be honest. Nashville says Viera is going to be class next season. I'm not even going to talk about it, because you guys remember this time, bookmark this, write down the time on this stream. Fabio Viera is going to be good. And I'm keeping my stocks. So all of y'all that came for my neck and told me I was crazy, that Viera's not good, remember this. He's going to be good next season. Once he gets some chicken and some rice in that diet, he bulks up a little bit, he'll be fine. He just needs some more playing time. Bookmark this. Timestamp it. It's coming. And if he doesn't turn out good, then you guys can come back and get me for it. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, Jesus, keep put him in the crucial category, I guess. Like I have no beef with Jesus. Jesus is exactly what was described on the packaging. Good technical player, aggressive, great dribbler. Misses big chances, probably never going to be a 20 goals a season striker for you, but has all the ability to like be your false nine and like do that thing. And he plays well the way that we play, so I love Jesus. He's in between here, like keep and crucial, like, because I actually don't think we're gonna look to sell Jesus anytime soon. I think we will bring in another striker and Jesus will be in the squad, but I actually don't think he'll be going anywhere anytime soon, to be honest. So I'll put him in the crucial category. I absolutely love him. 100%. He's just, I think that injury really messed him up, and then you had the 4-month layoff and came back in the middle of the run in, and that's difficult. But I think all in all, like he really took us to another level. So Gabriel Jesus for me is crucial. let's talk Balogun. Balogun will be sold, and so here's what I'll say. If I didn't have to think about fees, contracts, what the player wants, or anything, I would prefer to keep Balogun. I would prefer to keep Balogun over Nketiah. But using my common sense, I know he's going to be sold. And actually am okay with it because I actually am not the type of person that feels like everybody is going to stay. Everybody should stay. The academy serves the first team in many different ways, and selling players at the right time when their stocks are high is important. And I think, like the likes of Ainsley Maitland-Niles, we've seen that if you don't sell players at the right time, sometimes it doesn't work out. Now, Balogun, I don't think he's going to necessarily go down the same route as Ainsley Maitland-Niles and just fall off of a cliff. But what I do think is that, like, you're playing in league, that league is shit. Okay, it's not good. And a lot of his goals were like penalties and stuff like that. So even though I want to give him credit for going out there playing really well, I'm not about to sit here and act like we're going to sell a 20 plus goal a season striker. I think he's a talent, and we should strike while the iron is hot, just in case next season he's not as good. And he doesn't want to fight for a spot. So regardless to what the club wants, which I'm sure they want to reintegrate him back in, he doesn't want to sit on the bench. And Arsenal should not offer him or promise him a starting position, like, in order to keep him, because that's what would be required in order to keep him at this point. So Balogun for me gets sold. Just make sure you get a good fee. Like, it's not that deep to me, really. But I'm also like, I just want to remind you guys that I am somebody that thinks that the first team like the academy serves the first team in many different ways, and I don't necessarily feel like because Saka made it that all of a sudden everybody who's talented will and should make it. I do think that Saka making it and Emile Smith-Rowe being such a big part of the resurgence of Arsenal has kind of skewed the view on like what the academy is all about. Look at how many academy graduates actually make it at Arsenal. It's not very many. It's usually like one or one in a blue moon type of thing. So the idea that Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe and Willock was supposed to make it, and Balogun is going to make it, and Reece Nelson make it, is just not it, you know? So he could be sold. It's fine. Like, it's all right. Keenan says Balogun is better than Rafael Leao. I don't know about that. Off the Radar says it'll be a huge regret if Balogun isn't given a chance. The thing is, it's not about him not being given a chance. I feel like people are maybe purposefully ignoring the key that Balogun doesn't want to fight for his spot. He wants to start games. So in order for him to be given assurances on playing time, he can't be at Arsenal. Arsenal are not going to give him those assurances, and we should not. You know, Balogun is doing good where he is, but Lacazette is damn near the top scorer of Ligue 1. So we know that there is a drop off in terms of the Premier League. So basically, people are like, oh, I want Balogun to get a chance. I want him to stay. Well, are you willing to promise him that he's going to start over Gabriel Jesus in order to keep him? Because that's what it would take. I don't know why people are ignoring that elephant. He doesn't want to fight for his spot. It's not that Arsenal don't want to give him a chance. Arsenal are more than willing to allow him to be a part of the squad and to try to win some minutes, you know, to actually fight for a spot. He don't want to do that. And so actually, you should be looking at Balogun, not looking at the club. They're not making a mistake. He doesn't want it. Jacob says Balogun has less goals than Lacazette in Ligue 1. Can't be gassing him like this. A lot of them were also penalties. Not saying he wasn't good. I'm just saying that context is key. Shakar says he's tasted first team action regularly, can't blame him. I don't blame him either. Andy said he wants to play. Off the Radar says no one gets assurances he will fight if he's given a chance. He does not want to not be a starter. That's the thing. It's like you're assuming that he will fight if he gets the chance, but he's already said he wants to start, like he wants assurances. So if he wants assurances and Arsenal won't give it to him, then he's made the choice, not Arsenal. So yeah, Troy says he is not better than Julian Alvarez, so sell him. Yeah, I mean, he's not better than Julian Alvarez, but I don't know if that makes a difference really. But yeah, love Balogun, but more than okay for him to move on. Martinelli, fucking crucial. Like, let's be real. This guy is a star. I think he had his breakout season this season, but he's being ignored because he's not in Europe. And Saka gets a lot of praise and a lot of hype and stuff because one, he deserves it, and two, he's had an additional year of kind of like building up that foundation and building up that hype. And three, he has the English part of the backing. Like he has that. Martinelli doesn't necessarily have that. So he has to get some of that from Europe, you know? So I think him playing in Champions League scoring there is where we'll see Martinelli kind of gain that hype that Saka has. But don't get it twisted. Martinelli had a sensational season. He was right up there with player of the season. You know, Odegaard was my player of the season, but like Martinelli was a close second. Like he was just so fantastic. And he's been such a revelation, really. I mean, he's just a typical for me Arsenal player. Like, you know, we get him for damn near nothing. Like, you know, find him, you know, in the depths of, you know, the fourth division of Brazilian football, and he turns into an effing star. I mean, I love the kid so much, but yeah, he definitely, I think, is a crucial part of this for sure. Muhammad says, if only Balogun was taller, what a player he would be. That's another thing is Balogun doesn't necessarily like have a different profile to the players that we already have. Neil says, just every player wants to start. No player is guaranteed. People are misunderstanding what he means either way. If we get a good fee for him, it is what it is. But Arsenal want to reintegrate him into the team. So he's basically been told that, like, yeah, we want you in the team, but he has to fight for his spot. He doesn't want that. So I don't actually think that. I think he literally just wants assurances and wants to be the number one striker in a team. I think it's literally that simple. I know that people want to angle it towards like the club. I know that it's always like, well, we want to hold the club accountable. Quite frankly, like I don't know what else they could do but say we want to reintegrate you in and you'll fight for your spot. You know, he wants to start, and you know he will. Like the thing is like you can't say that like teams don't give assurances because like when we've brought certain players you just knew they were going to start, like, and your number 9, your goalkeeper, a lot of times those guys are they're the starters, like number 9s, your and your goalkeeper, they usually are like the guys that play every single game. They're, you know, it's not that, you know. So if he were to go to Napoli and, you know, he were and Osimhen were to leave, he is the striker. Like that's who they bought to replace him. So those are his assurances. He's the striker. I think there's some nuance here, and obviously like, you know, I know people want to hold the club accountable and make it like the club are doing something wrong, but for me, like Balogun just doesn't want to have to fight for his position. He wants to go somewhere and be the guy that they bring in to be their starting striker, like what we did with Gabriel Jesus, and he's not going to get that. We've already bought our striker. So yeah. Let's do Kiwi, my guy. Another person, never threw away my stocks, never sold them, never said, "Oh, well, he played that one game and he wasn't good against Liverpool." Well, shit. I, everybody would have shit their pants at Anfield if you're just thrown into the middle of a game, right? But he's definitely like in the it's hard to put him in the crucial because he's only been here for like 5 seconds. I think he will end up being crucial, but we'll just put him in keep. No reason to sell Kiwior. Love him. Think he's going to be great. So yeah. I like Kiwior already. So yeah. Saka, fucking crucial. Let's be real. This guy's a fucking star. I mean, I know people were upset, like, from the moment he missed that penalty, it was like people were on him, and I get that because he's the guy, and, like, when you miss penalties and you're the guy, you know, you have to, like, take the brunt of the criticism. But people were rewriting history as if Saka wasn't fucking sensational this season, and he was. Everybody, like, fell off a cliff, you know, at the end of the season, so, yeah. I think Saka is somebody that deserves respect. He definitely is going to take on the responsibility. Like he's going to be, and like I want people to listen before they react because I know people are like on their keyboard ready to like, "Bleh," you know. Saka is going to be like our Salah, and I'm not saying he's as good as Salah, but what I'm saying is that I don't actually think he'll have any true backup. I think he'll be expected to play every single game. I think that's why he's been playing every single game. And the responsibility on him is going to be the guy that wins us the games, that scores the goals. And so, yeah, I think he's going to get used to, maybe letting us down and getting a lot of the criticism. That's just what it is. But hopefully he has more good times than bad at Arsenal, because I think the guy is absolutely amazing. But yeah, he's a star, and it's really unfortunate the way that people are trying to rewrite the season as if he wasn't good. But I love him. Sin says, I like Kiwior. It's a pity we bombed in his first few games. Yeah, I hear that. Neil says Kiwior keep. Exactly. He's in the keep category. Like, he's not crucial or anything, but I think he's gonna have a good second season. Mohammed says Starboy. Exactly. Nashville says Kiwi is gonna be crucial when we switch to lightweight eights. Exactly. Like, we've been kind of seeing that, like, saying this for like a couple of weeks. Like, Kiwior, it's like when Arteta said that he was gonna change the way that we play, for me, that didn't say that he was gonna play a backup, center back role. I think Arteta was always gonna angle to have a different type of left back on that side so he can invert on the other side. And he missed out on Lisandro Martinez, who was good on the ball, but also a good defender. Kiwior, good on the ball and also a good defender. So he's going to be basically Ben White on the other side. So he will end up being important, even though he wasn't great in those first couple of games. And, it took him a couple minutes. But he's a good player. Like, you could just tell. But yeah, Saka, sensational player, definitely crucial. Like, there's just nothing else really to say there. Turner is an interesting one. Like, it's a keep. Like, there's nothing really to like, some people might have him in undecided. Some people might have him in sell, because I know he's not everybody's favorite, because, people don't trust him because he's not great with his feet. I think backup goalkeepers are just what they are. They're backup goalkeepers. I'm not going to rewrite the position. There's a reason why everybody's backup keeper is pretty much just like, just a guy. It's Ramsdale's going to play the majority of the games. So I don't really, have much to say, but like, keep Matt Turner. I don't think we need to spend the summer bringing in another backup or anything like that. I think he'll eventually move on, because before he'll move on within the next couple of years, like maybe even next summer, because gearing up for the next World Cup, he's going to have to get some playing time. Zach Steffen, that's the reason why he went on loan, was to get playing time before the World Cup, and he ended up not making the team. So if Matt Turner is at Arsenal for 2 more years and, the World Cup comes up and he hasn't really been playing, he won't be the number one goalkeeper for the US. So I don't think we'll have him for very long. I actually think we bought him, and we know, like, it's going to be the situation where we sell him for a decent fee, and we'll bring in somebody else, or somebody will move up. But to me, it's no real, like, it's no drama right now. Matt Turner is what he is. He's a backup. So yeah, and Turner is actually, like, if we wanted to actually save penalties, like, he's actually like one of the best in Europe, like, in terms of saving penalties. So for me, it's no drama. I know some people want better, but I don't think it's something that we need to really be looking at. IP says, are you confident with Turner in Champions League? He won't play in Champions League. Ramsdale will play in Champions League. The only time, like, Turner will play is like in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. Like, he's not going to be playing Champions League. So, for me, it's rewriting the backup goalkeeper position. For me, is just something that I feel like Arsenal fans have done, because we had one season of, Martinez and Burn Leno, and, we had Leno, and we had, Ramsdale, but that wasn't by design. That was because we were moving people on and trying to move things around. And once we iron things out, it became what it always is. You have your number one and your number two, and your number two is usually, like, not the most amazing goalkeeper, but can do a job. So, I'm chill with it. All right. So last couple of players here. Trossard, definitely a keep. I almost want to, like, I would put him in the crucial, but I'm not sure he's like crucial, but like, how do I say it? I think he is crucial because he's a crucial squad player. And I think, next season, especially in Champions League, he's going to be really good for us. But, he's been probably the best January signing that we ever had. He's so good, and he just fit in so well with us. I do think I rethought how I felt about Jesus coming straight back in. I think I definitely was somebody that was like, he should come straight back in and Trossard should drop to the bench. But I think I was wrong about that. I think Trossard should have continued to start because he was in form and Jesus ran out of steam after he kind of had that adrenaline of coming back into the team. It felt like he ran out of steam a little bit. And then Trossard kind of dipped a little bit in form after that. So Trossard for me is crucial, but he's also just but he's crucial. So I'll put him there. Actually, no, I will put him here, but you guys know what I mean. He is crucial for sure because he's a backup, Yo-Yo says crucial means we wouldn't entertain any offers for the player. Exactly. It's one of those where there is a difference between crucial and keep. And even though I think he's super important, to me, he's not somebody that if he were to leave, I wouldn't be crying about it. Do you know what I mean? This top level right here, if they left, I wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't be okay, So yeah, Zinchenko, maybe, it may be unpopular, but I think he's crucial. Sue me, I think Zinchenko is fucking crucial. I think he is exactly what he was advertised to be. He is our left back. He is a midfielder, and he's not an amazing defender, but he 100% took us to another level. And when he didn't play, we were not as good. And, I think his role will change. His importance to the team probably will not be as much as it was this season because we'll invert on the other side. We'll bring in some different defenders. Things will change. The dynamics will change. But for 90% of that season, Zinchenko was up there for player of the season for me. The guy was just doing it. Him and Odegaard were just doing it. And really our midfield was Odegaard, Zinchenko, and Thomas Partey, and Xhaka was up there playing fucking striker. It was great. And so for me, Zinchenko, I wouldn't entertain any offers for him. I think he could actually get a little bit better. But he's never going to be an amazing defender. He's never going to be that. So, but I also knew that going in. So I knew there were going to be games where he was going to be shocking defensively. But I don't know why people thought he was going to be a great defender because he never was. But I think we should have other options just in case we need better defensive, somebody better defensively. But I think he's crucial. I think he's fucking great. Crispy says, Zinchenko is crucial. This revisionism needs to end. Defensively suspect, but offensively he revolutionized us. Yo-Yo says Zin's temperament is his greatest weakness. He was embarrassing at times. Yeah, he was a little bit too rah-rah, too, sometimes. But, sometimes you got it. Have you guys ever had a friend that's a little bit cringe, but you love them anyway? He's just a little bit cringy, but at the same time, as a footballer, he's brilliant. So, I can live with that. I can live with a little bit of too many huddles, too much, and he'll learn, because I think coming into his first season at Arsenal, he wanted to play a big role. He never really had a big role at City, and he wanted to be that guy. I think he'll tone it down next season, won't be as amped up. But yeah, he's a little cringe, but everybody has a friend that is a little cringy, Saida says, I wonder why Arteta is looking to invert the right-hand side next season, or is it just more to have flexibility? I think it is just you want to have a midfield option on both sides and a center back option on both sides. So you can so you can have a little bit of variation to your game. We became quite one-dimensional at certain parts in the season because we knew Zinchenko was going to be on that left side inverting, and we didn't have anything different on the right. So I think it's just about having variation to the game more than anything. I'd be very surprised if I don't think we've seen the last of Zinchenko. I've seen so many lineups for next season that don't include Zinchenko. He's going to start the first game of the season and people are going to shit themselves. Jacob says, I want Zinchenko to be emotional. Shows he cares. Emotional, but also know when to be emotional. I think sometimes he did lose it, but yeah, I like the way that he is, but like with anybody, you kind of have to take the rough with the smooth, and like there's some rough sides to Zinchenko and there's some good sides. Keenan says people need to realize that our fullbacks play an inverted role, but need to have the ability to overlap when the opportunity presents itself. White is the template. Nashville says, I don't have a cringe friend. Wait, does that make me the cringe one? Shit, probably. Troy says, the guy made some insane passes last season. He's crucial to the team. I agree. He's just somebody that, like, he was exactly what was advertised. Like, I'm not surprised by anything that I saw. Actually was, like, very, like, happy with what we got for 27 million, to be honest. So, yeah, I love Zinchenko, so it is what it is. Let's go with, probably maybe one of the most hated Arsenal players. Like, every time I see an Arsenal fan that is upset, they're talking about Fabio Vieira. Like, I don't know how you could be talking about Fabio Vieira. He didn't even play that much. Like, be fucking for real. But for me, obviously, it's keep. You guys know, keep my stocks for Fabio Vieira. I think he needs more playing time. He needs also a better foundation. Like, there's just no way that we can play with lighter weight eights with Thomas Partey as a single pivot. He needs Xhaka as much as Xhaka needs him, and that's why it's important to upgrade upon the both of them, in my opinion. And so, if you want to be able to play Viera and Odegaard, ESR and Odegaard, then the base needs to change. Defensively, you need to have something different there. And so Viera is somebody that I think just needs a second season. But like I said with ESR, there's pressure there because it's not like he's going to have 3 or 4 seasons to get it together. Like, you had your adaptation season. I don't think Arteta did the best job of helping him adapt. It wasn't just Viera. It was basically everybody that wasn't a starter, I think, really struggled to make an impact at certain points in the season because they just didn't have they weren't playing enough minutes. And so I think Viera kind of suffered from that. ESR did a little bit. Trossard did towards the end of the season. Tierney definitely suffered with that too. And so, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about Viera for next season. There's definitely pressure for him to step up, but he just needs to eat. Like, that's really, like, the truth. Like, he just really needs to eat and get it together, but I like when he played well, I liked what I saw, but he's also very different from Odegaard, and that's the one thing about, like, dynamics when you have somebody like Odegaard that basically everything good goes through him, and you have a player that's a little bit different to him that's not as, like, heavily involved with buildup and things like that. You have to find that somewhere else. And so the dynamics were a little bit off. Foundation wasn't really there, but he also needs to take it upon himself to make sure that he doesn't go missing in games. So, yeah, I like Viera. Pressure's there, but I actually believe in him. Maya says Viera is so frustrating to watch. Cincinnati says get friggin' gym contract, bro. Yo-Yo says, not a fan of a player, but hate how he's being scapegoated. In his first season, he missed preseason with an injury to come back to us as a bench player at Porto. The title didn't rest on his shoulders. I feel like we need somebody to be upset by, and I think what it is Viera was the player that we bought when I think people felt like we had an opportunity to maybe buy somebody like Tielemans or Paquetá, and so we ended up not doing it. So people ended up saying, like, okay, so you need to be these players now. And even like Paquetá, like, if you watch West Ham, like, he only really started to come into form after the World Cup. Like, it took him a whole half of the season and he was playing every game. So if that's Paquetá, somebody who's more developed, like, has been playing first team football significantly longer than Fabio Vieira, the expectation that he was going to come in and be like this, when he didn't even have that many first team minutes, I always felt like he would be a project. But I didn't have that super high expectations of him being like this superstar on the first go based on what I learned about him and, like, reading and stuff like that. But he still needs to improve. And so I'm not sitting here and saying, like, he could just go 3 or 4 seasons without making any sort of improvements. But the weirdness around, like, him being like the biggest topic of the season is very strange to me. Very, very strange. Nashville says ESR, Viera, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. It kind of feels like that as well. Like, maybe, it's only going to be one of Viera or ESR that makes it out, so we'll see. Mark says, what about Marquinhos? I forgot about him. I have to be honest. Like, he's not up to the standard. Like, he should be loaned back out and then sold. But, yeah, no, like, there's no drama there. I just don't think Marquinhos is very good. And last but not least is Odegaard. Like, I will defend Odegaard like with my life. Like, I love Martin Odegaard. Like, he is like, I haven't gotten like a player's name on the back of my shirt in a very long time. The new kit, I got Odegaard. Like, I just love him. I think he's fabulous. And he's not perfect. There are games where I'm like, you were Casper, you were not there. But I think for 95% of the season, the guy was out of this world. And he's 24 and he's only going to get better. And we're building the team basically around Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard. Those three have the ability to become anything. And so I'm so excited to see what happens with the three of them. But Odegaard in particular for me just is just I think I just love the type of player that he is. Like, I like that he gets on the ball and everything that's good in attack comes from him, and the engine and how he added goals to his game. And I like the way that he came to Arsenal. I like his story and everything. So for me, like, Odegaard is just like that guy. He really is. And so for me, Odegaard is definitely crucial. And it's basically the starting lineup is crucial, like, except for, maybe TP. But I think that's for me with the anticipation that he will become more of a squad option, a really good squad option. And then this will be like, there'll be different players in that position. The players that could be sold, like, add Nuno Tavares in there. He should be sold as well. Like, he shouldn't be at Arsenal. Like, he's not good enough. But this is pretty much, what I came up with. Like, this should be the group that pretty much stays. I wouldn't mind keeping Jorginho, but like I said, like, if he was sold, like, also wouldn't be devastated as long as we brought in somebody of real quality. But I like these guys, like, I really do. So yeah, but I've also like healed from the end of the season. So if I had done this like right after the season that ended, like, there would have been a lot more people down here, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, let's see what you guys are saying. Keenan says sell Partey, keep Jorginho. That's a take there. Troy says Partey for me is crucial. Jess? No, I'll put him in the crucial category for you. The Bang says, some moments I watched Odegaard and I thought, what the hell was that magic? Like the nutmeg on Dunk against Brighton, and he set Martinelli up. He's just pure class. And again, he's not perfect, but he's definitely somebody that, I think can really just go up to the next level. It's him and Saka and Martinelli that I really do think, like, we're building everything like around those three. And to think that the three of them cost 36 million all together, that's just insane. I love it. Keenan says we can get 30-40 million for Partey. I just don't think we need to sell him for anything. Like, I think selling Xhaka, because I don't even think you need to sell Jorginho. Like, I think somebody will go, but you have to sell him? No. But you're already going to sell Tierney. You're probably going to sell Balogun. Xhaka's already going to go. There's enough there where I think you could sell, where you don't have to sell Thomas Partey, because the reality is like, having him in the squad, again, unless the bad thing happens, that's a very high quality squad option. And I don't think Arsenal are really in the position to like be getting rid of those types of players, just like, even if it would be 30-40 million. So yeah, Nashville says Partey was a second fiddle for most of his career at Atletico. I agree. Tony says these rankings change a lot if we get our transfer targets. Yeah, and like I said, like, if we were to bring in Caicedo and Rice, then, things I think would be a lot different. I think at the bare minimum, we need 2 midfielders and a right back. Those are the 3 that I expect to come in. Like I said, like my feelings on a center back have kind of changed because seeing Ben White back there, I'm like, okay, the right back is what we need because Tomiyasu is the player that's not going to be around, right? Need to replace him, need to make sure that we don't are not needing him because he's not going to be available. You want to upgrade there, and then you bring in 2 midfielders, and then maybe if you could do something else. But because my list is like so much smaller than others, I don't feel like you need to sell as much. But some people feel like we need fucking 5-6 players. I just don't think we need that. And we're not going to get that. So yeah, Yo-Yo says the squad needs experience, but the midfield of previous seasons can't be relied upon again. Well, no, I mean, experience, I mean, I asked this question in my video earlier, is experience overrated if the quality is there? And I think sometimes quality is more important than experience, but, somebody like Jorginho does have a lot of experience that could be very useful. My issue is that, I just don't see a world where you have Thomas Partey, Jorginho, Caicedo, and Rice, so let's say that you only got Rice, then yeah, you keep Jorginho, you have 3 DMs, all kind of like different. And then maybe you could bring in, a more advanced 8, 10, in there to do something a little bit different. So yeah, things could really change based on who you bring in. But the experience, I do think the type of experience is important because even though Xhaka had experience, he didn't have experience at the top level. And what I mean by that is yeah, at club level, he's like an experienced professional, but he's never won the Champions League. Like he's barely even played in it, So is that experience that useful to us? I mean, we've seen the extent of it. And that's not to shade him, but it just is what it is. Ivy says, if we sign a right back, do you see Arteta moving Ben White to midfield like Pep did with John Stones? No, I think if we sign a right back, Ben White will just be the backup center, right sided center back, and he'll also be an option at right back. But we'll have I really think we're trying to sign João Cancelo. That's my feeling. I think that's who we want to sign. That's who we're probably push for. So, if you let's just use him as an example. If you were to bring in João Cancelo, he would be the starting right back, and Ben White could be an option at right side of center back or right back. And so that's what I actually think will happen with Ben White is there'll be more rotation and he'll be like a very good option for either one of those positions. John Stones is a freak of nature, and I know we often compare the two of them, but I don't really like to because John Stones is an elite player, and I think comparing the two is maybe not the right thing to do with John Stones being so much further along in his progression. There's just things that he can do on the ball that I'm not quite sure that I've ever seen Ben White do. So I wouldn't necessarily want to put Ben White in midfield, but I think he's good for what he is right now. And I just don't like comparing the two because I think it puts this expectation that Ben White should be like Stones, and I don't necessarily feel like anybody's like Stones. Melly says playing Cancelo and Zinchenko together would be like defensive suicide. Well, that's the thing. You don't play them together. Again, Kiwior would be playing on the other side. You only invert on one side. So, you could play Cancelo on one side and then invert on the left, or play more of a defensive option on the left, or you play Zinchenko and then you play Ben White. So you wouldn't do both sides. Yo-Yo says signing Cancelo confirms little brother status syndrome for another season. If we were to happen, I'd be quietly upset. I know you saying that has been in my head since the first time you said that, but I still feel like we're gonna try to sign him. So yeah. Martin N says, I think Ben and Saliba should share the right center back role. We have more than enough games for the both of them. That's what I think will happen. I think you bring in a right back and then you rotate Ben with the right back and you rotate Ben with Saliba. And he doesn't necessarily become a backup, but he's another option. Because seeing Ben White at center back again was that's he looks super comfortable there. And he looked comfortable at right back, but it's just something a little bit different. Nashville says, I would rather get Fresneda. I did see a report today that Fresneda is like pretty much going to Dortmund. So I think we can completely like maybe rule that one out. I don't think we get Fresneda. Sasha Bowie is also like, there's been a lot of reports that like we haven't even like, we're not really like, he's not an active target. So I think we're trying to go after João Cancelo. That's what I think. So yeah, but yeah, and like Jacob is saying, like Fresneda has nothing on Cancelo. I just think it's a different way to go about things. And you know, if João Cancelo was coming from any other team, we'd be like desperate for a player like that. But him coming from City, I do think is like, oh, another one. But yeah, he's a top player on his day. But we're gonna go ahead and end things there. It's been 2 hours, and yeah, we have done what we needed to do. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel before you go. Get in the comment section and let me know what you guys thought about everything. Went through all the players. I know we didn't have Nuno, or you know, there's a couple of other players that weren't there, but I think it's pretty much obvious, like if they weren't there, it's probably because I forgot about them and they probably will be sold. So you know, there you go. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you guys haven't noticed, like I'm doing like short transfer news updates that come out around like midday, early afternoon, and then if there's like something that I want to talk about, we do lives in the in the evening. So there's always something coming out, but there may not always be a live. So if you're kind of like, oh, what's going on transfer wise, and you want like a short update video, there's actually one. If you just go onto the channel and go to the playlist for SheKnowsArsenal Daily. There's tons of them there. Today I talked about Rice and Caicedo and Kai Havertz and Jorginho. So if you guys want more of that, you guys can look at it there. But like I said, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.